Shavua Tov Mevorach, a good week. We are continuing in chapter 11 of Yevamot, Mishnah Hey, Kohenit Shinit Arev Vlodo Bivlod Shifchata. Another case of a mix-up. Mrs. Cohen had a newborn baby, and it was mixed up with the newborn baby of her Shivcha Kinanit, the servant who is, again, quasi-Jewish. Hare Elu, so both of these boys, Ochlin B'Truma, they can both eat Truma. The one who's really the Cohen Jr., because he's actually a Cohen, and the other one because he's living in the household and serving in the household of the Kohanim. The Holkin Helek Echad Bagurin, and they divide one portion at the threshing floor. What typically happens is a Cohen goes to the threshing floor to get his portion of Truma. Now, one of these two boys is a Cohen and is entitled to Truma. We don't know which one, so they need to go together at the same time, and they'll be given one portion of Truma for both of them, and they'll split it, because we don't know which one's the real Cohen. They cannot become Tameh, ritually impure, through touching a dead body or going to a cemetery, because after all, one of them is a Cohen, and it's forbidden to do so. Ve'ein nosim nashim, they cannot get married, bein kasherot, bein pesulot, whether to normal, quote-unquote, kosher, mainstream Jewish girls, or pesulot. Pesulot in this context is a Jewish girl who's allowed to marry an eved, or a freed eved, but not allowed to marry a Cohen. So, for example, a female convert, or one who was a shivcha and then became fully Jewish, was freed and now is fully Jewish, a Cohen cannot marry those type of women. So since the Eved, the son of the Shivcha, can't marry a regular kosher mainstream Jewish girl, and the Cohen can't marry one of these other types of women, so neither of them can get married. But Higdilu, once they grow up, Hatarovot, the mixture, these two boys, Shichru Zaytzay, they should both free one another. We don't know who's really the servant and who's really the Cohen, so they should both write a document of emancipation. They should both make an emancipation proclamation, and now they're both free. So now the Cohen is a Cohen, and the former Eved is now a regular Jewish guy. So now, Nosi Nashim Rula Kehuna. They can both marry as long as that girl would be fit to marry a Cohen, so not a convert and the like. And they still can't go to a funeral, go to a cemetery, because we don't know which one's the Cohen. If they did become ritually impure, we don't give out lashes, as if someone was a Cohen and he on purpose became Tameh, then the court would give him lashes for infringing this biblical commandment not to become ritually impure. And now they can no longer eat Truma. We don't know which one's the Cohen, and the other one used to be an Eved, a servant, who was entitled to eat Truma because he was working for the Kohanic household, but now he's freed. He's working for himself now. But if they did eat Truma, they don't have to pay the principal, the amount of Truma, and the Chomesh, the 1/5 payment as a penalty on top, as we discussed in Masechet Trumot. Because both of these boys who are now grown up can claim, well, I might be the Cohen. You need to prove that I'm not a Cohen before you can force me to pay for the Truma. They don't go to the threshing floor to get a portion of Truma. At the Truma, but if they have their own Truma, they're allowed to sell it to a Cohen, because Kohanim eat Truma, and they're allowed to keep the money. Because again, they can say, you'd have to prove that I'm not a Cohen to take this money away from me, and there's, a 50-50 chance. They do not get a portion of the share of sacrificial offerings in the temple. We don't give them parts of kodshim, such as the hides of an Ola offering that were given to the Kohanim who were serving or on duty in the Beit HaMikdash. But we can't take the hides away from them. If they go and bring a korban, normally the hide would go to the Kohanim on duty, but a guy who's a Cohen can keep his own hide. We don't take it away from him because they might be a Cohen. Peturin min azroa min alachayim min akeva, and they are patur. They are not obligated to give the zroa, the foreleg, or the lachayim, the jawbone, or the keva, one of the stomachs. These are matzot kahuna. These were given to a Cohen when someone slaughtered a regular animal. You'd find the Cohen on your street and give it to Mr. Cohen, or you invite him to the barbecue and you give him those parts of the barbecue. Ubichoro, and his own firstborn animal. Now, normally a Yisrael has to give the firstborn animal to a Cohen, but his Bechor, since he might be a Cohen, Yehei Roeh Ot Yistav, it should go out and graze in the field until it's mistav, until it gets a mum, a blemish, which makes it basically edible. Normally, a Bechor animal that does not have a blemish must go to the temple and become a special offering, and the Cohen bringing it eats of the meat. But if it gets a mum, if it gets a blemish, it could be even eaten in the backyard of the Cohen. He can make his own barbecue. And here again, since both of these men can claim, you can't prove I'm not the Cohen, if the animal has a blemish, they are allowed to eat it in their backyard. We give to them the stringencies of both Kohanim, the priests, and Yisraelim, regular Jews. Now, the Gemara explains this means if they bring a carbon mincha, we are stringent, because normally a carbon mincha of Yisrael, the komets, one scoop of it goes up on the Mizbeach, and the rest of it is eaten. But by a Cohen, the entire thing goes up and is burned on the Mizbeach, the mincha of a Cohen. So here we don't know if he's a Cohen or not, so we have to burn the shirayim. They have to scoop out the komets and burn that, and then they have to burn the shirayim separately on the Beit HaDeshen. Now, it's an interesting note. I've heard they did some genetic testing in Eretz Yisrael, and they found out that a whole lot of the people who claimed to be Kohanim had the same gene. A Y-linked chromosome was identical in the vast, overwhelming majority of them, which, it seems to be genetic evidence that the Kohanim were pretty accurate in remaining Kohanim. Let's go on to Mishnah Vav. Mi shelo shahata achar bala shlosha chodeshim v'niset. A woman who did not wait the rabbinically required 3 months after the end of her first marriage, and she went ahead and got married. Now recall, those 3 months or so we can tell if she's pregnant already from the prior marriage. The Yolda, and then she gave birth. The Ein Yadua, we don't know. Im ben tisha l'rishon, if it's a 9-month baby from the first husband. Im ben shiva l'achron, or maybe it's a 7th-month baby to the achron, the second husband. There was a mitzias back then that some babies would come out and they would look full term, even though they were really only in there for 7 months. We don't really have this anymore. Hayula boni min rishon and boni min sheni. Now, what if this woman had other sons, both from the first husband and from the latter husband, the one she rushed into the marriage with? Love is blind. So what do they do in the event that this middle child, this sort of suffix, we don't know who the father is, what if he passes away without children? Holtzin v'lo miyamin. They have to do chalitza, not yibum. Now, all of these brothers share the same mother, but there are 2 different fathers. There was the original husband and then the latter husband, and they're not sure who this deceased brother was actually paternally related to, and Yibum goes through a shared father only. So since they don't know who shares the father, then the surviving brothers from both sides would do Yibum. Not Yibum, definitely not, only Chalitza, not the Yibum. V'chen hu, and also this middle child, this child where we're not sure who the father is, we know the mother, Holetz v'lo miyabim. If one of the brothers passes away from either one of the husbands, he has to do Chalitza, not Yibum. Now the Mishnah adds, Hayu lo achim, if he has other brothers, we'll see it's one other brother, min harishon, v'achim min hasheni, one brother from the first original husband, and one brother from the second husband, shelo me'ota'em, but they don't share a mother with this middle child, this indeterminate child, hu choletz umiyabem. He may do either chalitza or yibum, when there is dafka one other brother, not from the same mother, from each of the potential fathers. Now the reason here is either he's really the paternal brother to the deceased, and Yibum is an option, or if he's not, then that deceased brother has no paternal brother, and when there's no surviving brother, there's of course no Yibum or Chalitza, there's no Zika, and that woman is free to marry anyone. So she could go ahead and marry this middle child. Either it's Yibum or it's just a marriage which is mutter. Vehem and the other brothers that share a father but not a mother, Echad Cholitz, Echad Miyabim. So the surviving brother from one father can go ahead and do Chalitza, and the next one can do Yibum. Because again, that Chalitza will take care of it if that's really the paternal brother, and then the widow is released to marry anyone, and if not, then the second family is producing the real paternal brother, and Yibum is an option. Yashar kochachem, Shavua tov, Zag gesund.